Hey, after this episode, you might want to sprint to your kitchen and do a full on detox with your pots and pans. It has me thinking twice. Are they secretly sabotaging our health? Yep, we're talking about forever chemicals, those sneaky little toxins that might be lurking in our cookware and messing with our family's well being. Hey there, Fit Mamas. Welcome to Working It Out with Anna Kooiman. This is the podcast where we help wellness minded moms just like you and me juggle family life, fitness goals, and healthy living without losing our minds. I'm Anna Kooiman. I'm a certified personal trainer, women's fitness specialist, and fitness nutrition specialist. So, yep, we're talking about forever chemicals in our cookware. Now, don't panic because our expert guest has some solutions for us too, and some of them are actually easier than you think. Plus, make sure you stick around all the way till the end of the show because, as usual, I'm using my fitness background to share a tip that's going to change the way you think about rebuilding your core and pelvic floor after having kids. And no, it doesn't involve crunches or sit ups. Are you intrigued? Well, you should be. You're going to love that. All right, but here we go. Joining us now today is somebody who's as passionate about clean living as I am about doing squats and burpees. We've got Courtney Swan here. She's an integrative nutritionist, a fierce advocate for non-toxic living, and the brains behind the popular Instagram account and podcast Realfoodology. Please welcome Courtney Swan. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Anna, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for having me on.
You as well. All right, so let's start with the basics. What exactly are forever chemicals? So what are the basics here? Break it down for us. Forever chemicals, why should we care about them?
So there are a class of chemicals called, otherwise known as PFAS, which is PFAS, which stands for a longer word, which I have a very hard time pronouncing. It's perfluoroalkali, I believe is how you
Okay.
pronounce it. But essentially, the reason why they call these forever chemicals is because unfortunately they don't degrade or break down in the environment. And these are chemicals that we see in, for example, nonstick pans, or we also see it on waterproof stuff. So like your waterproof ski boots or your
Oh.
waterproof ski outfits. And these are chemicals that, like I said, they don't ever break down and they have concerning links to cancer, endocrine disruption, and so many other things. And we're finding them a lot in our environment.
And look, when you talk about it being on your ski gear, well, big deal. You're not putting your ski gear in your mouth, but in our cookware, you're cooking a pancake or whatever, and then that does go into your mouth and your kid's mouth. I was making pancakes this weekend on a nonstick pan, and I was actually thinking about this interview that we were about to do. My husband and I are talking about maybe for Christmas we'll gift this to each other, a whole new setup because it can get pricey even if you try to be smart about it and save some cash. I just saw a headline recently about California looking, there's a bill on the table to potentially phase out PFAS in cookware. But for the rest of this, these chemicals, as you said, they're everywhere. They're all over our environment. How are they ending up in our food? What does that mean for our health?
Yeah, unfortunately, there was a study released a couple years ago, and they found that 90% of Americans have PFAS in their blood because they've become so ubiquitous. And the majority of Americans are getting it in their blood through things like cooking utensils. And I think there's a lot of things that people don't think about. For example, air fryers are coated with them.
Oh, yeah.
Anything in your kitchen that's coated with that black non-stick coating on top of it most likely has PFAS in it, unless if you're buying from a company that say we don't use these forever chemicals. Another huge concern is if you are cooking with a nonstick pan and you scratch it and you start seeing those little
Right.
flakes. I've seen that before. I remember in college, my mom came to visit me. We were making eggs and she was like, "You have to toss this out." My mom was way ahead of her time because all these little black flakes were ending up in my eggs. And she was like, "You're eating that coating." So there is we can go into this too about what to do about it, but especially if you're cooking with a nonstick pan that has a bunch of scratches in it, you definitely want to make sure that you throw that away because those scratches, once they're in there, they're releasing thousands of microplastics and PFAS chemicals into your food.
Right. So I'm thinking about just, a pan that I would make pancakes in or saute vegetables or something, but air fryers too. Excuse me, we use that all the time. Yeah, and we can go into some brands and things that you like and that you stand behind. I always tell my fitness clients though, that's my sort of zone of genius. And I tell them to think about their kitchen as an extension of their health routine as well. You can't, exercise your way out of a bad diet. And it's also so important to think about, yeah, how we are cooking things. We wouldn't fuel our body with junk food. So why cook on potentially toxic pans, right? Let's be real. These nonstick pans are so convenient though. So the
Mhm.
real risk of having them, how do we balance this? How do we balance this with if I'm getting rid of my waffle maker, my all the pans that I'm using for my vegetables and pancakes, my air fryer, my everything, it does really add up. I mean, how important is it? Are there other things that we need to be worried about with chemicals before our cookware, or is this sort of top of mind, top of the list?
I would say this is something as a health professional that I'm probably the most worried about because unfortunately, exposure to these chemicals has been linked to so many different health problems, cancer, infertility, because we know that it affects the endocrine system, and the endocrine system can either fuel cancer if we're damaging it, or it can also cause infertility because your endocrine system is this very intricate system that produces and also circulates your hormones throughout your whole body. It also has been linked to birth defects, liver and kidney damage, immune system harm. And look, I'm not here to scare people. I'm just here to inform. It is really concerning, and we need our governing bodies to really regulate these more. But in the meantime, what I would do is just start slowly swapping out your kitchenware. Unfortunately, things like waffle makers, also the crock pots. I hate to be the bearer of bad news,
Oh,
but I know. But the good news is that there are companies that are creating healthier, better for you products that are not using these PFAS. Because
yeah.
I'm of the same boat. You know, for the longest time, I said just use stainless steel, which I'm huge proponent for still, and I try to do it as much as possible. But if you're doing something like pancakes, it's really hard to do
It
on stainless
is.
steel because it just
Yes.
sticks right in there, right?
Yeah.
So there are a couple brands. There's a brand called 360 Cookware, and they do all sorts of stuff. I know that I'm pretty sure they have a waffle maker. I do know that they also have a crock pot. There's also Green Pan, and I know they do have a crock pot as well. Our place is actually a great company to go to when you're first starting out because you can buy a kit of a couple different things that will replace your entire pot and pan collection. And it's pretty affordable when you do a bundle like that. And then there's also another brand called Caraway, and they do similar kits where you can kind of bundle it all together. And you know that they're not using the PFAS and other harmful chemicals.
Sticking with PFAS, but going away from cookware, what are, again, some of the other places that we need to be thinking about this? As a TV person, today while I was on set, I was filling in on Morning in America, and the hairstylist, every time she was coming out, I was covering my water and my coffee. And she said, I've never seen anybody do that. And I said, well, you know what? The more I do all of these stories, I'm just thinking about the whole world and my environment, all the things I'm doing to myself, the spray tan and the things we do as women, and makeup, and you know, I mean, everything that we're putting on our body. So where else are we experiencing this? And should I be worried about my hairspray or not worry about it?
You know, that's a good question. To be honest, I've never looked up to see if PFAS are in hairspray, so I'm not entirely sure about that one.
Okay.
But you can, yeah, in some makeup, like I said, with ski gear and stuff like that, or people will spray their boots for the winter. Those have PFAS in them. I'm trying to think of other examples. Those are kind of the main ones, to be honest. And then, unfortunately, what I would say is what you definitely want to make sure you have is a really good water filter that
Okay.
specifically says that they filter out PFAS because it's unfortunately ending up in our water systems just because the runoff of all of the businesses that are using it. And that's in a large part where we're also getting exposed to it. And again, I don't want anyone to live in fear, but get a good water filter. Be conscious of the new products that you're buying and bringing into your kitchen. And I would say too, I would just say I would be concerned about what you're putting on your skin and spraying around you. And every time I go and get a blowout, I try to remember to bring my own more non-toxic hairspray because
Okay.
I'm concerned about all the fragrances. We do know fragrance. This is crazy. This is a little bit off topic, but fragrance is being called the new secondhand smoke because we're
Oh,
inhaling all of this, and it has fragrance, and fragrance can be a
yeah.
mixture of so many different chemicals that we don't even actually know because it's similar to natural
Yeah.
flavors where it's an umbrella term. So things like that, just being more conscious of, we forget that our skin is our largest organ and it's eating whatever we're putting on. So we
Yeah.
want to be more conscious of what we're putting on and around our bodies as well.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk about this more on another podcast episode of Working It Out with Anna Kooiman, because I'm so interested in all of that. I'm somebody that sprays so much fragrance, and I have to almost apologize because sorry, I just sprayed my perfume, But my sister-in-law and one of my best friends uses essential oils instead, and they always smell lovely, like lavender or something. So maybe I should start doing that too. So another episode for another day. But if we can come back to PFAS and come back
Mhm.
to our cookware, let's just close and talk about, we see some movement there in California. Nothing has been signed into law, but there is a bill on the table. So what about the rest of the country? for you. I know you're part of the Maha movement. You're part of that, you say, and it seems like the movement is starting to really talk about PFAS more, and also in cookware.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, PFAS are a subject that I'm incredibly concerned about. This is something I've been trying to sound the alarm for years on, especially when there weren't so many companies that were creating these healthier nonstick pans, and we didn't really have a lot of options. And a lot of people just didn't even know what was happening. Unfortunately, so I will say I'm very happy with a lot of what's happening with Maha right now. But something that a lot of us in the Maha movement are very unhappy about and feel like we did not vote for this is the EPA is working on actually reducing some of the regulations that we have on PFAS right now. We're trying to fight back on that. I don't know how effective we'll be, but this is something that's incredibly concerning. And it is a little bit confusing because I did see Lee Zeldin when he first came into office. He said he's incredibly concerned about PFAS. I mean, the science is there. We know how harmful they are. It's just a matter of we need to keep these companies in check and regulate their use of them and make sure that they're not overusing them and that we're not sneaking them into things that shouldn't be in there. And honestly, I think the biggest problem is that we don't have a replacement for PFAS, and they're in a lot of things like the nonstick cookware and a lot of industry needs to use it for specific things. But anyway, so I'm incredibly concerned about the EPA rolling back regulations on that. And I'm hoping that we can turn that around.
All right. And look, the midterm elections are coming up. So, you got to use your voice one way or the other. And we do have from the other side of the argument, we can go ahead and play that. All right. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for weighing in on all of this. I know you've been doing tireless research on this topic and so many more about clean eating and just clean living as a whole. Courtney Swan from Realfoodology. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right, now as promised, this is the time for this week's fitness tip. Moms, if you're struggling to rebuild your core and pelvic floor after having kids, I've done a lot of studying on this, and here's the secret. It actually doesn't involve crunches or sit-ups. Those come later, but you got to start from the inside out. Let's roll the tip. Mama, are you frustrated trying to figure out how to rebuild your core properly after having kids? My name's Anna Kooiman, and I have got 5 tips, 5 different exercises I'm going to teach you that will help you do it the right way, working from the inside out. So the first one is deep diaphragmatic breathing. How do you do that? Well, first you get your ear, your shoulder, and your hip bone all in a line to make sure you've got that nice neutral alignment. You're going to put your hands on the outsides of your ribs. You're going to breathe into your belly, ribs, and back. And then as you exhale, you're going to wrap in the abs, zip up, and lift through your pelvic floor. Let's do 2 more of those together. Umbrella breath. Inhale and exhale. Wrap in those abs, zip up, lift through your pelvic floor. 1 more. Inhale, belly, ribs, and back. And exhale, wrap in those abs, lift through pelvic floor. Now we're going to pair that movement with breath. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. First, we're going to inhale into our belly, ribs, and back, looking up. We're going to exhale, tuck the tailbone under, lift through pelvic floor there, Kegel. Inhale, eyes to the sky, and exhale, tuck tailbone, lift through pelvic floor. Again, these are called cat cows. Last one, inhale, eyes to the sky, looking up, shoulders away from the ears. Exhale, tucking tailbone, lift through pelvic floor. Good. Next up, we're going to do bird dog crunches. You're in that same quadruped position, but you're going to extend your right leg and your left arm, and we're going to take our elbow to our knee. So we inhale out and exhale in. Let's do 3 together. 3, 2, 1. We're going to have a nice flat back here. So you don't want any space between your back and the floor. We're going to take our feet into a tabletop position. Our hands are going to come just above us. We're going to take one arm and one leg down opposite and bring it back to the center. So these are called dead bug crunches. You want to imagine that you've got a push pin going through your belly button to keep your back flat to the mat. This is going to work that transverse abdominis. That's going to zip that tummy nice and flat after having kids. Now I'm going to show you how to take this up a gear. You're going to work your way up to using dumbbells as well. So you exhale through the movement. Same sort of thing. Nice job. Again, this is just the foundation. You start here. Brick by brick is how we rebuild our core after having kids. I want you to take it up to the full side plank. Lift that arm. Still feeling good? Add a challenge. Extend the leg. So once again, the idea is that you rebuild your body brick by brick, starting slow and progressing as you get stronger. I hope you enjoyed these tips. My name's Anna Kooiman. Follow for more women's fitness tips that make you smile as well. It's not just superficial, it's about how you feel. All right, Fit Mamas, that's a wrap for today's episode of Working It Out with Anna Kooiman. Just a huge thanks again to Courtney Swan for dropping some serious knowledge here about forever chemicals and what we should be looking out for. If you loved this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on NewsNation's YouTube channel and follow me at Anna Kooiman on Instagram for more tips, tricks, and inspiration. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect to be healthy. We just have to keep working on it, small steps at a time. We just have to keep working it out, right? All right, I'll see you next time.